Hi, everyone. I'm Penny Redford, the Climate Change and Resilience Manager for the City of West Palm Beach. And I'm going to talk with you today about 5 ingredients for a backyard oasis for wildlife. Wildlife comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Some are friendly, some are not so friendly. Well, this scrub jay was very friendly. You don't usually see a scrub jay in someone's backyard, but every other picture almost that is in this presentation did come from my backyard. So I want to share with you ways that you can increase the beauty and enjoyment as well as good habitat for your backyard. So what are some of the wildlife that we see in backyards? Well, birds are just plentiful in South Florida. You especially see birds in the in the spring and fall migrations. Some of these birds stay year-round, while others you see mainly in the winter or when they're just passing through. The 2 yellow birds on the left-hand side of the slide are migratory birds. The top is a Cape May warbler, and the bottom is a prairie warbler. The middle ones, the top bird is a red-shouldered hawk, one of the most common hawks that we have in Florida, and they stay year-round with us. The middle picture at the bottom is a common yellow-throated warbler, and that's a winter resident. I took that photo through my Florida room window. And then the bird on the far right is a yellow-crowned night heron. They are a year-round resident, and you usually see them when you're close to salt water. Oh, and butterflies. How beautiful they are, and how easy it is to get butterflies to be in your yard and live there and not just pass through. Just a few of the butterflies here. They're monarchs. There is an atala, a sulfur, a ruddy dagger wing, a skipper, and hair streak, and more. The other critters that you might find in your yard, you may not think to begin with are that great, but just like the black snake that is in the center of the screen, they serve a purpose, and they don't harm you. So that black racer helps keep the, maybe mice and frogs populations down. Then if you look on the left-hand side where there is a brown annel at the top and a green annel at the bottom, those are 2 different types of lizards. The green one is native, and the brown one at the top tends to outcompete the green native one. So it would be much better, and hopefully you will see some of the green ones in your yard. If you look really closely at the middle bottom picture, right in the center is a little tiny frog. Now we have a lot of different frogs in South Florida. Most of them are good. There are some invasive exotics like a Cuban tree frog. Don't like them. They also outcompete our native frogs. And then there is a bufo toad, which is a much larger ground-dwelling toad that can be poisonous if your pets, or I guess even children, were to handle it or get it in their mouth. If you look on the slide to the very right-hand side, that's a pretty big lizard that makes its home in my backyard. So there are other animals that you can find in your backyard, many other butterflies, many other birds, and reptiles, amphibians. I just happen to have pictures of those. There also can be some mammals in your backyards. Hopefully not rats, but you do have to be careful of how, you maintain your yard and um, bird feeders and things like that to make sure that you're not attracting them. But you could find foxes, um, armadillos, maybe land crabs, possums. Those are all really typical mammals. Well, the crabs are a mammal that you could find in your yard. Again, I just didn't happen to have any pictures of them. So what are the 5 ingredients that we want to talk about today? Limiting the amount of lawn in your yard, planting natives, vertical layering and providing shelter with the plants that you provide, and then having food and water for the wildlife that you're trying to attract. And possibly one of the most important is using sustainable practices to make sure that we have a healthy and long living backyard. So limiting your lawn. Who needs it? Lawns are monocultures. They're boring. You have to put all kinds of fertilizer and pesticide. You've got to buy equipment that's usually loud. It takes your time and energy. And if you're not doing it, you're having to pay someone else to do it. Lawns require a lot of water. So really, why do we have them at all? Well, my little Peaches, my puppy in the picture there, is why we could want to have some grass in our garden. And of course, you want to have room for your children to play, pets to play, and maybe for you to do some kind of activity. So there are good reasons to have lawns, but limit the amount of lawn in your garden. So planting natives, this could be the single most important thing that you do in your backyard garden, in your garden overall. I have a combination of native and non-native plants in my garden. I try and really focus on natives because natives are very important to wildlife. They reduce the amount of pesticides or fertilizers and water that you might need, and they provide beauty. They're resistant to storms, just overall excellent choice for your garden. Now these, I had to put a couple of slides in because of how important these plants are. These particular natives are trees. That beautiful big tree in the middle is a southern live oak, probably the most grand tree that we have in South Florida, and it provides habitat for all kinds of birds, other plants, and even as a host plant for several different kinds of butterflies. The tree on the far left is also an important tree for wildlife. It's a sea grape. They can be kept low and even shrub or hedge-like, or you can let it grow. Could be 3 stories high in some cases. And the birds really love that tree because it fruits. So you've got flowers and then fruits. The palm tree that is listed there is our Florida sable palm. It is another very important tree for wildlife. It provides habitat. I have many times seen screech owls that sleep and live in that tree. And then, of course, if you leave the fruits on it, it also provides food. The tree to the far right is a gumbo limbo, another fabulous tree, provides beautiful shade, has an interesting sort of scaly kind of bark, and also blooms, small, insignificant blooms, but they really bring in the pollinators, and that brings in the birds. Next up are the native shrubs and flowers. There are so many to choose from. I just pulled out a few that I find to be most interesting for beauty and for wildlife. The red flower on the far right is a tropical sage. The butterflies and hummingbirds love that. Directly below it is a calocarpa, or American beautyberry. It can also get maybe 10 feet high, 8 to 10 feet high, and provides good cover as well as food. And the berries ripen to that beautiful purple color. Next up on the top would be the firebush, an all-round fabulous small tree or large shrub. It has beautiful orange-red flowers that attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. In the winter and fall and winter, it will have fruit on it that turns to a darkish, almost a black color that the wildlife really like. And it also has really beautiful red-hued foliage at different times of the year. Directly to the right of that is another spectacular garden plant and a native, and that is a Jamaican caper. It works excellently as a hedge. It can be a small tree. It's got a beautiful silver underside to the leaf. The flowers look like little fireworks, and they open white and then turn a lavender color. That also is a host plant for a little blue butterfly. Below the Jamaican caper is a small blue flower, an ageratum or a floss flower, that's a great nectar plant for small butterflies. And on the far right side at the top is a coffee. This is a shrub that has a shiny green leaf. It has small white flowers that attracts zebra longwing butterflies, and it also will have a red to then sort of black purpley fruit for wildlife. And the last shrub or flower that I'm going to bring up is the one at the bottom, the white flower with the nice little bee on the bottom. That is a swamp milkweed, and is a host plant for monarchs and queens. So vertical layering is next up. So why do we care about the heights of our plants? Well, the different sizes and shapes of flowers, as well as color, can attract different butterflies and different pollinators. Some birds like to stay on the ground or maybe in low shrubs, while others are always up high on top of the trees. When you have a variety of heights, when you've layered your landscape, it allows shelter for the butterflies, the birds, and other animals, the frogs, and those helpful little snakes that, you may not see them all the time, and that's okay. You want to be able to have them feel safe, be able to zip in and out, and have a place that they can raise their young, that they can protect themselves from predators. And then also this dimension, adding this depth, really adds interest and beauty to the garden. So another really important aspect of gardening for wildlife is food and water. So I'm going to start out with the middle bottom photo is a picture of a bird bath. That is the easiest way that you can provide water in your landscape. But it's very important to keep that bird bath clean. Another issue is some bird baths are really too deep, so the birds can't really get to the water well. So if you have a deeper bird bath, put a couple of rocks in there so that different sized birds can be sure to be able to drink and also bathe in that water. Directly above the bird bath is a feeder that has painted buntings on it. The male painted bunting at the top, right-hand side, it literally looks like you gave a child a whole box of crayons and they just colored different colors all over it. It has a bright blue head, a lime green back, a red breast, and blue and green wings. And the female painted bunting is bright green. Now, the reason I included the feeder here is that some people like to provide food in the form of feeders, and others just want to provide the actual growing fruit and seeds. Either way is fine. It's up to you. A combination is really, you certainly wouldn't want to just have a feeder. You need to have the native plants and the food that this wildlife needs. But if you do choose to have a feeder, please be careful to keep it clean. Always clean it out in between the times that you refill it. And be very careful that you have some kind of a dome or some protector from that food so that you don't attract mice and rats. So some of the plants that I have listed here, if you look to the far right-hand corner, is a beautiful Atala butterfly and caterpillar. That caterpillar hosts or eats zamias or kuntis. And right below there, the little brownish red cocoons, those are or chrysalids rather, are from the Atala butterfly. Directly below is just a shot of some wildflowers that are acting as nectar plants so that the butterflies have plenty of nectar and food. The other pollinators may have pollen. And then some of these wildflowers will seed out and provide seeds for birds. If we look over to the far left-hand side at the top, that is caterpillars from the monarch butterfly, and they are on a swamp milkweed. Directly below that is a coffee plant with some immature coffee seeds. They will turn sort of reddish and then dark purple. And in the middle at the top is a fire bush showing some of the fruit from the fire bush. And directly below that is a caterpillar feasting on a passion vine. That'd be the native Superosa passion vine for our area. And that is a Gulf fritillary caterpillar. It will turn into the most beautiful orange butterfly with silver on its underwings. Next up, again, very important, are sustainable practices. What I'm really talking about here is making sure that you look at your garden holistically. And what are all of the things that you can do to make that a good environment? First, you want to reduce your water use. So a rain barrel would be a great addition to any garden. Then the middle top picture is really showing the mulch. If you weed your garden and then heavily mulch, you won't need those herbicides. We don't want to use pesticides in a wildlife garden. It's going to certainly contaminate the area for both wildlife, you, and your pets. Then if you look directly below the bottom picture there in the center, it's really a packet of seeds that our group has handed out, and it's talking about save the bees and other pollinators. You know, many insects are going extinct and they don't have enough food. We've paved and really sanitize so many of our areas that it's important that we think about protecting those pollinators, because if we don't have pollinators, we won't have food to eat either. So plant some wildflowers and welcome pollinators into your garden. The bottom left-hand photo is of a garden that does not have grass, or mainly doesn't have grass. It has perennial peanut. So you certainly can use different kinds of ground covers in the place of grass or in addition to grass. And then on the far right-hand side, a picture of my backyard, which I said most of these pictures are from my garden. And you can see a little bit of brown in the grass. Well, guess what? It grew back. I don't use pesticide. I use organic fertilizer. If I do have any kind of pests, or I try and use something that's organic, but generally I just sort of welcome everything into my garden. And that's because I want to have a safe and beautiful place for me and for my pets and for my family and for all of my larger family, which is the wildlife that lives there. So just sort of summing up, I know sometimes it feels like, well, it's only one garden. You know, what does it really matter? Well, it does matter, because what you do magnified by all the other people can make a difference. And you can be an ambassador for this type of wildlife gardening. So be the champion, be the example, and transform the world. So what do we get when we follow these 5 ingredients for a backyard wildlife oasis? We have beauty, we have wildlife habitat, and we have a lot more time to play. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you've spent with me, and I hope that you'll be able to take some of these ideas and transform your garden. Please, if you have any questions, and if you'd like to learn more about what's happening with sustainability in the city of West Palm Beach, visit us at wpb.org/green, or you can email us at sustainability@wpb.org. Thanks so much, and have a great day.